So this is a pretty loaded panel. I'm so excited to be up here with all of you. And we're talking about honesty in storytelling and in brands. And I think, it's really great that sustainability has become such a buzzword. But the reality is there are a lot of people who aren't doing the work, but we happen to be up here with all the people who, or a lot of people who are doing the hard work. And we have some small brands, we have some larger brands. And I think it's such an interesting thing to hear from all of you about. I want to hear what you think the definition of sustainability should be. And I'm going to introduce everyone first. We have Chris Raeburn, who is the creative director for Timberland. And I'm not saying the last names that I'm going to butcher, so you all can jump in, but we have Estelle, Bailey-Babenzien, and Brendon Babenzien, who are the founders of Noah Clothing. And Waris here, who is the founder of House of Waris. And to my right, who I'm going to have kick it off, we have Sofie, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer for G-Star Raw. And so, Sofie, I really want to start with you because I went into a deep dive looking at all of G-Star's practices, which I didn't know a lot about. And so I think I want to hear what the definition of sustainability should be from your perspective, given, again, that it's been co-opted in this way and that people aren't doing the same hard work that you all are doing. And I also want to talk about it. I read something about looking at sustainability as an opportunity for innovation and not as a hindrance or some sort of barrier to the work that you want to do. So if you could just tell us about your work, that'd be great.
Well, thank you. That's a big question, inviting for a big answer. So once you get me started, I don't know if I can still stop.
I will stomp you because we have other people to get to, but
thanks.
You go.
That's great, that's great.
I'm here.
So first of all, I don't know if everybody knows G-Star. We are a denim brand. We exist for 30 years. We were founded in Amsterdam. And sustainability has been part of our DNA, as you say. So thanks for already mentioning that. We are working on sustainability since 2006. And what we mean when we mention sustainability is that we're designing our denim for the future. Not only in the way it looks or the way it's styled, but very much also in the way it impacts the people and the planet involved. And we've heard that reference many times, but I think that holistic approach to sustainability is absolutely key. As was mentioned during the day, these are all intertwined and related. So that's absolutely key for us. And what we have seen is that it is very key in moving things forward and not only talking about sustainability and impact on people and planet, is to make bold statements. So that's what we do. We make commitments. We set specific goals, but we also don't shy away from moving into a direction without knowing exactly how to get there. But I don't know, challenging ourselves to get to a point. And one example of that is our 2030 ambition of eliminating waste, our waste. That goes hand in hand with our focus, for example, on circularity. But first and foremost, in order to take these steps and to make these moves, you need to make sure that you take the responsibility for your value chain, not only for your supply chain, but for everyone who is involved in the value chain, in the process of making the product, wearing the product, and returning and reusing the product. So I think that is the core focus of our work today, taking that responsibility and making sure that when we say something about circular innovation, something we're really excited about, that we can be sure that that backbone, the base is in place. One of the things we do is that we always combine sustainability and our innovations. I think, it is the future. If we want to exist as a brand over only 10, 20 years from now, we need to focus on sustainability, but also on innovation. And one great example, and one very up-to-date example, is our latest launch of our cradle-to-cradle product range. That's a lot of difficult words. It's all about circularity and reuse. And what we do is that we create our denim icons, which are our best sellers in the collection, and we make sure that they can be completely reused, that they're made of 100% organic cotton, that there's no chemicals involved in the process of dyeing, the process of making them, the process of indigo dye, that there's 100% regenerated energy in the process of making this denim. And also that we don't spill a 0 drop of water, something that is actually often happening when you create cotton and when you make denim. So that are just a few examples of how we have achieved the highest standard certification, called Cradle to Cradle product certification, at the gold level in general. And we're super thrilled about that, and especially because applying that to our icons means that we create scale. Because those are our best sellers. So that is a very tangible example of how we make that focus on circularity and how we take the first steps in eliminating our waste.
Yeah, I want to ask Sonu more questions about everything that you're doing with water and then some of the future plans you have. But Christopher, I want to turn to you. I feel like you're living two lives at once because you have your own collection. You have Raeburn that you launched in 2009, but you're also the creative director for Timberland, which is a newer position, but I'm so curious, this dual role that you have, because you do focus so much on sustainability with your own collection, and then you've been brought into this bigger brand. How does that work to have, how are you applying what you've done with a smaller collection to a larger global brand?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and good afternoon, everyone. Really, really very proud to be here. For those of you that know nothing about what I do at Raeburn Design, I started at a company almost as a happy accident. I took a military parachute, I bought it on eBay, cost me £30, so about $45, and I made it into 8 garments. And I sewed them myself, and that was back in 2009. And I showed them at London Fashion Week, and I was very fortunate that there was interest at the time, and actually a time before Instagram, can you believe? So we were very fortunate to get a lot of coverage on blogs and things at the time, and step by step I was able to grow my own business. And the idea of that sort of started things conceptually was this idea of not just making something, but remaking it. So I called it Remade in England. And then as I grew the business, I introduced different parts of my business, so not just remade, but then recycled and reduced. And that's now 11 years ago, and I've been really proud that I've been able to work with a lot of partners, and we've heard a lot about collaboration and the importance of working alongside individuals, brands, partners, governments, whatever you can do to help spread the message. And I'm so proud now that I've come in as Global Creative Director for Timberland back in October, about 14 months ago. And the really exciting thing now is that I can take all of those learnings from Raeburn over 10 years and then bring it to a brand like Timberland and truly make a difference, on a global scale. And the exciting thing now is that, even picking up with some of the comments here from Sofie, this idea of circularity, really important. We know that's a big thing. And actually we sort of need to work on that together. And then another big topic for us, and we heard this morning, is around regenerative. And it's a big focus for Timberland. We use a lot of leather, we use a lot of cotton, we use a lot of rubber. And at the moment, the exciting thing is that all of those things could be positive on both the planet and people. So that's a really big focus for us as we're going forward.
Yeah, and Sofie, I'm going to come back to you because I also wanted to talk about proprietary information. I know that you share so much of what it is that you have done to approach sustainability. So I just want to put this in your head because I'm going to come back to you in terms of sharing some of the advances and the industry and the different factories that you're using, because I think a lot of people want to hold that information close to them, but I know you all have shared it. And now I want to turn to Estelle and Brendon, though, and to talk about, Noah it's really remarkable what you've built since 2015 when you launched this. And I know that you wouldn't necessarily say we're a sustainable brand. And I think you're very specific about the language that you use, but you're also very specific about the materials that you use. And you're really thoughtful about that. And so I'm so curious to hear what Brendon says, but I want to let you all dig into this and talk about Noah.
We're basically here to clarify the idea that we're not a sustainable brand. We never thought of ourselves that way. We get pulled into the conversation all the time. It's really strange to us because we never said it. And the media and all these people started just kind of be like, no, they're sustainable. They care about the world. That makes you sustainable. And, we do a few things here and there. We have some recycled cotton program and recycled nylons and things like that. But we've always talked about our business as more of a responsible business, making more responsible choices across everything, not just in the clothing itself. but in how we view the business as a vehicle to help others or create change. Even how we treat our staff, the interaction with our clients and customers, is kind of across the board, which is why we look really like kind of schizophrenic if you follow us, because we can talk about everything, you know. One day we can talk about the environment, the next thing about, you know, human rights and sending money to Australia because we made a t-shirt, and it's just all over the map. But certainly sustainability is not something we would call ourselves, or sustainable, it's not anything we would call ourselves. And I kind of came here to clarify that, actually, because it happens a lot where people call us sustainable. You know, just being here and that last panel, hearing some of the things they had to say, and, you know, we often get asked to talk about stuff, and it's like, everyone talks about how hard it is. Oh, it's so hard to, you know, be a responsible business or make good choices, and it's not hard at all. We're a small business. We started with next to nothing, and we do it all day, every day. Like, if you're greedy, it's hard, but you know, if you're a reasonable human being who cares about other human beings and cares about the environment, it's really not that hard. And I think we need to talk about it that way. We need to say to people like, hey, you should be doing this. It's not hard. Keep a few extra dollars out there for the world. You know, you don't need it all, because that's really what's gotten us here. You know, the kind of like crazy wealth gap, and who has it all and who doesn't. You know, I don't know if what we do will address that in any real way or not, but we'll continue to try to make things better, at least for the people close to us, and sometimes the people, you know, far away. But it's not hard. And anyone, whoever wants to start a business, you know, just ask yourself what's important to you and do that. You know, be that.
I mean, yeah, it's not hard, but I also think modeling good behavior, which we have so many people here who are doing that, and there are others who are looking at brands. Again, it doesn't matter the size of the brand that you have. It could be large or small, but that every decision you make along the supply chain, and this is, again, where I think it's so interesting to look at the definition of sustainability, which has been co-opted as a marketing term, and I never thought it would be cool or chic to be sustainable, but you look around this room and I think that we see that that's actually the case now. And so I am very interested in this conversation around owning what it is that you do that is sustainable, because I think maybe honesty would be another word that we could apply to it. And Estelle, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add in terms of this work. Yeah,
I think it starts from being conscious, like truly conscious. I think it's cool to be conscious these days because the younger generations are way smarter than the generations before. Especially when you're starting something new, we were lucky to build that into the DNA of the company, so we didn't get so big and then have to retreat back and figure out how to change all our choices to be more sustainable. It's actually part of our everyday decision making. Even things like every choice that's made to use less plastic in our everyday living, as well as in packaging and clothing and all of those things. And then decisions such as buying less, huge, making clothes that are built to last. Fashion and style are two different things. Fast fashion is such a big thing right now, but I think now when we look at the younger generations, it's becoming the smarter people are realizing that it's just cruel that the earth is screaming, and we have to address those choices, buy less, be smarter with our choices of fabrics, who are we buying from. You know, there's like some really great companies out there, and buying from Noah is a smarter choice than buying from, I hate to say
Don't
it.
say it.
I'm not going
Don't
to say
say
it, but you know, it might cost a little bit more.
There's a lot of people watching.
But yeah, it might cost us that little bit more, but nobody's suffering at the end of that supply chain. You know, that's a sustainable supply chain. The factories that we use, the people are treated fairly and paid fairly. Like nobody's losing from that purchase. So I think just thinking beyond fast fashion, using less, buying less, that's the message that we are trying to put out there, and I think it's the most important thing that an individual can do every day.
yeah, and I think we're talking about just capitalism generally and how we've approached this, and maybe
How
not.
dare you.
How dare I? And maybe we've not gotten it right, perhaps, is what we're looking at. And Waris, I think that this is a perfect transition to you. Sorry. You had a jewelry line before you launched House of Waris, and I just had some of the tea, and it was phenomenal. I feel very calm and delicious turmeric. But I really want to hear from you about what it was that made you transition, because you made the jewelry very thoughtfully, working with craftsmen. And I loved what you said about every time you sat down with the craftsman, they would offer you tea. And that it was also this opportunity to reconnect with the earth, because at the end of the day, people just wanted to keep buying product, but you didn't necessarily want to keep selling things that you were making. And so, I want to hear more about your transition to this.
Good afternoon. I sort of don't see it as a transition in the process of the work, but more in the product. We work with craftsmen all over the world. I sat with them day in, day out, months out of the year, just working. It was never in a factory, whether we made our jewelry or scarves or whatever it was always with individuals, families. But on the other end, it was just creating something that was part of the larger problem, which was just, felt like this thing of the need, the desire for material, for the desire, in Hindi or Maya, like the lust for material. And I didn't love making, although I loved making the process and designing and working with the craftsmen. On the other end, it was someone was desiring this gold ring, and it was just part of a bigger problem, a bigger flaw that the system in itself is broken. And so I just took a look at my work, and I got tired of working and creating for people's wants, and I wanted to reshift and think about humanity's needs.
And I'm curious, I'm going to keep going with you, what the response has been, too, to that shift, or what it feels like to have a space or to have ritual. Gets thrown around a lot, but there is a ritual around having tea and sitting down. It's just a very different experience from making a purchase, having it be so transactional and leaving, if that's further shifted things, or...
Yeah, so I'm on sabbatical from jewelry, and I didn't want to say I left, so I'm on sabbatical. It's been a 6-year sabbatical. And we just launched the company, House of Waris Botanicals, in November. And so we've spent the last 5 years trying to figure out what to do. Because the world doesn't need more product. It doesn't need more things. So then what was my purpose, right? Because I make things, and I enjoy making things. So we wanted to build a company, not just a new business, but a new way of doing business, right? Not just another CPG company, consumer packaged goods company, but another way to look at what that is today in the 21st century. And part of that was about community. Part of that was about culture and about the product itself. And we're here talking about sustainability. We use zero plastic. Our tins are refillable. You can bring that back into our shop. Originally, we were just going to be a website and an app, but then again, I thought that's part of the problem, right? Like how we're just so disconnected from each other. I said, let's open a space where someone can interact with a human being, right? And so instead of launching a digital-first company, we said, let's launch a human-first company. So it's been a process, an exploration. I mean, the thing that I always call myself is an explorer. And every year, just trying to figure out what the best use of our time is that we have on the planet. There's so very little time. And so I'm just trying to make the best use of what I have.
There's so very little time, but each one of us can have a huge impact for the good or for the bad, especially when we're talking about consumption and how we make things. And I'd love to hear, Christopher, just to turn it back to you, about some of the initiatives that Timberland has underway, because this is another brand where I've known it for so long, and then I went into a deep dive before this conversation because I wanted to understand what a heritage brand like that is really doing.
Yeah. Well, I think with Timberland, I mean, we feel we have such an obligation to work harder and do better than than ever before. I mean, ultimately, we're a brand that has a tree as its logo. You know, so since '73, we've actually been trying to do really good things. We've been making fantastic product. Back in 2007, just when I graduated from the Royal College of Art in London, it's when Timberland introduced the first Earthkeeper boot. And at the time, this was the most innovative piece of footwear. The way that it was manufactured, the supply chain, it was the best in the industry. Now, we're 11 years on, and there's so much opportunity to innovate. And that's why I'm personally very excited for the industry as a whole, not just for Timberland. You know, Brendon mentioned, well, it's kind of easy now. I wouldn't go that far, but it's a lot more accessible. You know, when I started my own business 10 years ago, now we're in a position where absolutely the notion of circularity is closer than ever before. The regenerative side of what I mentioned earlier is closer than ever before. And then for a brand like Timberland, you know, we've really changed our entire focus to be a lot more purpose-led, partnering with people like Dominique down here in Sustainable Brooklyn, you know, really actually looking to support people doing amazing things every day. When you walk into a Timberland store, the new ones now on Fifth Avenue or in Carnaby Street in London, the first third of the store is actually dedicated towards education and inspiration. This isn't about the product anymore. This is about a partnership with our customers and really growing from there. So it's quite an amazing and inspiring moment, I think, in the industry. And we're just so proud to be part of it.
Yeah, and Sofie, I'm going to turn it back to you to talk about sharing information, because I think so many people are here either because, I mean, they work in fashion, they're activists, they're scientists, and want to know how they can improve their brands or inspire other people to make improvements so that it is less destructive to the planet. And what is the ethos to sharing the work you've done, to really pulling back to the curtain? And, you know, what do you think is the most important thing that people should go and look at, and where can they find those resources?
Yeah, I cannot agree more with the focus on partnership, first of all. And the example that I just gave is the result of a fantastic partnership with our suppliers. And I think that is already a first step of sharing, because that was not how it worked 10, 15 years ago. So now we are creating the latest innovations together with our supply chain. And I think that is the first step. Besides, of course, engaging with everyone involved in the value chain. And for us, that also means that you share information about your learnings and about the developments with peers, with the industry, to make sure that you accelerate together, basically. We also see our responsibility as something way beyond what we do, because we don't have all the answers. So we need to reach out to partners who do, but we also have, I think, the duty to be, in some cases, the partner who has some of the answers. So what we do is that we share our learnings and developments about our whole cradle-to-cradle or circularity journey in an online library. We also take information and knowledge from that library, but we really hope that this type of sharing will encourage others, for example, to create circular fabrics or circular products using the technology, so meaning that they don't have to reinvent the wheel, and building on those innovations. And I think, you know, that is going to increase the opportunity and especially the choice for people to actually make a more sustainable decision, to move away from just producing for the sake of producing, but to use what's out there already and make that the basis of new products or renew products. So I think sharing, being open, and collaboration is absolutely key. And it also means that we shouldn't shy away from sharing things and information that's maybe not final yet, because nobody's perfect. So if we can accept that from each other, and if we have that willingness, I think we can really shift and change this industry, something that is absolutely necessary to fight, for example, a big issue like climate change that we all have to deal with.
Yeah. I'm so interested, Brendon and Estelle, you are on the receiving end of people calling you a sustainable brand, and it's not something that you claimed. I think that there are so many other brands who claim to be sustainable and then aren't doing the work. And again, it's lovely that it's in vogue, but I think it's very problematic when people are trying very hard to make good decisions about their purchases and they're being fed misinformation. And so, I don't know, I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on the state of storytelling, because I also think you're brilliant storytellers. You do that through your brand.
We're just trying to be honest and straightforward. and collaborate authentically with our customers, with our workforce, with the planet. We can't win every battle, but we try to make extremely conscious and honest decisions along the way.
The stories that you might be referring to, the way we kind of talk to the customers and our friends and everybody, I mean, that's really just what's happening around us. We've been really blessed with our team. Anyone who's come to work for us, it's like an island of misfit toys. It's just like, they all belong there and like nowhere else, you know what I mean? And it's a really strange group, but they bring stuff to the company, and then that gives us more reach. So the stories, they're just really genuine. They're things that are just happening around us and our team's friends and everything else. And, you know, we just kind of like let that wash over us. And then if we think it's interesting, we just show people, whatever it is. And, you know, when we first started, I think because of where I was before, people expected certain types of stories, and they got something else. And I think that was surprising, you know? We kind of did some nerdy stuff, and it's not all super cool, you know. There is some like weird science stuff in there that we talk about, and we talk to scientists and stuff as well, and let them speak. And it's the storytelling is the best part of it, right? You were talking about a human space, and before we came out, you were talking about the store, and those spaces, those interactions with people. That's really where we come in. You know, we were starting the business, and we absolutely had to have a store. There was no way around that, because it's not real if you're not engaging with people, if you're not exchanging ideas. It's just weird, you know, like just a piece of cloth that you bought. Like, there's so much stuff that gave rise to what you made. You know, jackets, your tea, our stuff, whatever, you know, like, there's things behind that. There's cultural things that made you do it. Songs you've heard, people you've met, places you've been. That's where all this stuff comes from. And if you're not getting that, then really you're not really getting anything at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm also curious, just generally as a theme, because you are ultimately, at the end of the day, storytelling through your brand and trying to share something that's so beautifully and authentically made. And what feedback are you getting, and any of you can answer this, from your customer base? I mean, are they excited about sort of how you're pushing forward on sustainability? Do they want more of it? What's the feedback?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. When I think about Raeburn, we do everything we can to physically open the doors and to welcome people into our spaces. Everything from making workshops, free repairs, those opportunities to inspire and educate, but also importantly learn from our customers, because we've found that having that direct dialogue is so important. And absolutely, you know, that's still really relevant, of course, for Timberland as well. You know, to have a brand that was entirely built from culture, essentially, you need that direct dialogue, I think, to really understand what your customer's looking for, how you can make those improvements, and how you can evolve your company, you know, big or small, with them. Because you have to stay relevant, right? So it's really important.
We've definitely gotten some shit from customers. Be like, you're a hypocrite. You were saying this, but then you're doing that. And that happens, and, you know, Brendon will get all upset because he's like, I'm doing the best I can, and now what's going on? But then we address it, and we talk about it, and we say, look, we can't do it all, but this is what we can do. And then sometimes... And that's the honest part of it. And then we look for the solutions, actually. It's really been great to get some feedback, and then made us think and dive deeper and figure out solutions. And as we grow, how can we get better?
And that will continue forever. And I mean, you mentioned that, right? Like giving people space to get better and be better. Even the largest companies in the world, you know, some of them want to do the right thing, and we've got to help them do the right thing. We've got to help them along. Some don't, and you know what? Fuck them. But, you know, the ones that do, we should give them the room and the time, because turning those big ships around is incredibly difficult, you know? Yeah.
The other thing I'd add is maybe for anyone looking to start their own brand, or in fact, kind of any space in the industry, it is amazing if you pick up the phone or you email people out there because you don't know the answer to something. Invariably, people will get back. From my little studio in London, we've emailed NASA, and a guy comes back. And if you don't try, you don't get. We're all trying to help each other unlock this big kind of puzzle at the moment, right? So I think, again, it all comes back to collaboration, partnership, good energy, that, really just sharing the information that we can and motivating each other, I think.
Yeah, I think what's clear too from everyone up here is how much you enjoy doing what you're doing, even if it is really hard. And I see that from
Brendon thinks it's easy, remember?
It's not hard.
Just to be clear.
We're doing something right, I
holding
guess.
these
I'm not really sure.
I feel like we have so many good troublemakers up here, which is like exactly what we need to be doing, is making some trouble. So, Waris, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add. I'm seeing you.
Well, you asked a question as we walked in here. You said you were going to ask about the word sustainable. Mm-hmm. And it made me think, as we were walking in, what the issue is, what the larger issue is. Why is there a climate crisis? Why are we having trouble? Why are the forests burning? Why are there species that are endangered? It's us, right? We're the problem. We're the bad guy in this movie, and that's a real bummer. So instead of just looking at the word, instead of sustainable, like up there it says, we are not sustainable. Another way to think about it is, we are not in balance. And if we are not in balance as individuals, as human beings, as each one of us, then how is the planet going to be in balance? And so that was one of the things of why we started this company, looking at plants, of just starting from the source, of trying to get ourselves balanced before we can have an impact on the planet. And so it's just about finding our own balance.
I feel like I have to turn it back to you. Again, it goes back to the quote of,
Because I'm looking at you like...
well, you're like, I want to jump in. No, but also the way that you talk about this is an opportunity to find balance, or to say we don't have to waste 7,000 gallons of water to make a pair of jeans. We can actually recycle all of that and have 2% evaporate. I did my homework.
Nice.
Thanks. But I think, if you could speak to that and finding balance, and potentially speaking to how we can be more connected to the planet so that we aren't just the bad guys.
Yeah, we started conversation also with the definitions, and I also get back to our own definition. For us, this is part of how we work, and this is part of our responsibility. Sharing information is part of our accountability, and I think that's not only part of the supply chain, it's for all of us. So what we already discussed is ask information, send an email. I think it's up to all of us to take our responsibility to make sure we restore the balance together, because every single part in this process has a role to play. And that can be invest in the way you treat your denim. I'm always talking about denim because that's, my focus. It's about all your garments, of course. But think of how many times you wash it. Super simple, but that can already have an impact. Like, wash it less. Make sure that you return it to the store or to a place where you can return your denim, to make sure it doesn't end up in landfill, but that something else can be made out of that, or that it can have a second life. Those are sort of the practical solutions, I think, that can already help make an impact today and restore that balance that we so much need. And I think, honesty is absolutely the key part in that. So if you don't find that type of information, reach out, ask questions, be critical, and be a little bit of that activist that, we all should be in our own way.
Yeah, I keep thinking too, the word sustainability to me, I don't know why it feels like it's just come to apply to using organic cotton or making sure something is, and I love what you said about your team. The two of you were talking about how your team is treated and taking care of everyone from the supply chain to who works in the store. And that to me feels like also a sustainable approach, and just being a good person. That human health and planetary health are interconnected. And so I don't know if you want to talk about the team that you've built, or how that's an extension, or if anyone has anything to say about, again, the treatment of the people as an extension of sustainability, or maybe the need for a different term.
I mean, that we never tied it to sustainability. We just
I did
couldn't.
that. You can disconnect
Right. Thanks
it.
a lot.
You're
Like,
welcome. I'm here for you.
No, I mean, we just thought, well, this is how you treat people. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it seems pretty obvious that you should treat people with respect and look after them, particularly if they're, you know, I mean, you should look after everyone, but the people that are really close to you, the people that are helping you and supporting you, you know, you need to give back to them. So it wasn't really thought of in a sustainability in terminology.
I mean, it's also like creating a sustainable workforce, life force.
That's true.
Yeah.
Some of them might be with us forever.
Like
you know?
down to the point where the clothes are the price that they are, because that's how much it costs. We're not putting fake prices on things or reducing the prices to the amount where the people that are making it aren't being paid. You know, I think it's looking at everything transparently and trying to go all the way back to the source and making sure that the humans are treated fairly from the source all the way up to when you're wearing it on your back.
Yeah, we built an economy that isn't really real, right? If people are suffering, if people aren't being paid, if they're not living well on the other side of, you know, where our products are coming from, it's all a lie. It's all a sham, you know what I mean? So it's like, and then when you start making clothes that are the real prices that they have to be, when you use better materials and you use a workforce that is paid well and has vacation and everything else, all of a sudden the public is shocked at what the real price is.
Yeah.
You know, they're just like, wait, that's so expensive. It's like, actually, no. For the family that produced it, for them to eat and have a decent lifestyle, this is what it needs to be. You know, but for a long time, particularly I think in the Western world, nobody cared. If you made money, you were a god. Nobody asked how you did it. It didn't matter. It was just make money. Business was the top level, and nobody really cared what you were doing to get there. And that's a huge problem. I mean, that's the thing we're trying to fix in our very small ways. Like, how you do it matters.
And I totally agree, and this is where I've started to have, I struggle to use the word sustainability, actually. So as being slightly contrarian, also, I love the name of this panel, which is We Are Not Sustainable. And this is what I'm saying for those businesses that are using that term, but then not necessarily treating the people well. So, and I actually, Christopher, I don't know if you want to talk about that within Timberland and just, you know, in terms of the team structure, some of the transparency elements, but I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I think certainly my own personal experience of then working alongside the team members, we're about an hour north of Boston here. I mean, there are so many advocates for responsible design. You know, and it's really, when I started, it was so apparent that there was already such a backbone of people that cared about all this stuff. You know, we have a pretty big group called the Product Sustainability Group, and this is their passion every day. And exactly to your points, this wasn't people that we brought into the company, it's people that grew with the company. You know, this was already in their blood. And then a really big thing for Timberland actually is the community aspect and the fact that it's people and planet. You know, we've committed already now to planting 50 million trees in the next 5 years. We're doing that in 7 different regions around the world. The projects that we're doing in places like Haiti, for example, where it's cotton farmers that then, it's not just giving them the livelihood, it's then buying the cotton and continuing the, you know, those side of things are super exciting for me. So it's not just the internal kind of team that we're growing and of course fostering, but it's really then looking outside and what you can do beyond your own company. I think that's the exciting thing. And again, for me personally, when I think about my own team with Raeburn, you know, we're at 25 people. And then when I think about Timberland, you know, it's close to 2,000 stores around the world. That opportunity to really use that as a positive force for change, you know, it's amazing and really start a movement. And again, I come back to that energy and really just needing to work together and motivate, learn from each other and push each other ultimately. Yeah.
Yeah, and then around the definition, I mean, are you struggling with the definition of sustainable? Is this something that you think about,
Yeah, I mean,
you know, the way that it's shifted?
Let's be honest, I mean, sustainable isn't enough anymore, right? The planet is pretty screwed up, and to your point, you know, we've done that, and we need to work double hard to make some changes, and, you know, the definition of sustainability is about enduring at the same pace, you know, it's not not changing. I think we really need to look at that. You know, at Raeburn, we talk a lot about responsible design. We talk about our obligation, you know, as individuals, as a designer, as a brand, to actually then be making the right choices. And, you know, for me, it really changes the whole narrative when we consider things like that way. And it puts then, again, it's back on your shoulders in a good way. And I think it empowers in a good way when you think about your responsibility rather than that confusion around what sustainability means, because it means a hell of a lot of different things to different people.
Yeah, and I'm curious about next steps then, if we've gotten so far past the point of being sustainable, but that we actually have to start to do the repair work. If there are any initiatives underway that you want to speak to with what you're doing, and I don't know if this would be, I'm opening this up to the panel because I'm genuinely curious, because I do know about G-Star Raw, but if anybody wants to speak to that. Sofie.
You know, I don't want to speak too much, but the big opportunity here is around regenerative agriculture. We heard from Matt.
Yeah.
This is the game changer, and there's a lot of work that we need to do, but to get to a point where all of this stuff, you know, we need raw materials, but to get to a point where that's not attritional on the planet, and it's actually positive on the planet, on the people, you know, that's the game changer, I think. Again, not easy, super complex. I don't understand it all, but I really see the future there.
Yeah, I'm also obsessed with the waste management guys who are here. I'm now like thinking about everything I consume and then returning it to the earth. So I don't know if you want to talk about circularity and some of the work that you're doing there.
Yeah, I don't know. I cannot be more excited about that term, and also the opportunity of waste as a resource today. I think already here we see that there are so many exciting initiatives going on. If you see what's happening, if you see that landfills are a museum, I don't know, that shows at least a different perspective on how we deal with waste and how we deal with materials. And I think that's also yet another sign that we're on the verge, an exciting verge, of having a totally different industry, where besides reuse, regenerated energy materials, we also have to think of, do you need to own your clothes in the long run, or do you rent them, or do you lease them, or do you do something else with them? It's really key questions that we have to ask ourselves, and you already see big moves in terms of how many cool second-hand online platforms we have at this moment, but that will continue to move. So that's an invitation, I think, to all of us to assess how we are as a consumer, how we act as brands and retailers, and how we frame the industry.
I'm going to end it here, even though I just want to keep talking to you all forever. So thank you all so much. Oh, wait.
Can I add one tiny fun thing? Because all of this should be, I think, kind of fun, right?
I'm having fun.
It can be so I love the waste conversation. But one thing that I learned recently, just before Christmas, 60% of your household waste you can compost at home, right? So all of that food waste, if you do have any, and of course you shouldn't have much, but the peelings and maybe paper or toilet rolls or cardboard boxes. So I bought myself a worm farm, right? That's the big news, right? And again, it's a kind of fun experiment, but actually the truth of all this stuff, I think if we all kind of test and learn and kind of enjoy the process about how we can reduce our personal impact, but then again, designers, brands, everything working together. It's super cool, but I love the waste chat.
I think we need to, we're ending on worm farms. Everybody get worm farms.